From a tiny trading post on the edge of the New World to the city that never sleeps, New York has captured imaginations for centuries. We all know the iconic images: skyscrapers that scrape the sky, streets buzzing with life, and stories that shaped a nation. But do you really know how it all began? Today, we are taking you on a journey through time from the first settlers to the rise of the modern metropolis. The story of New York City is full of ambition, struggle, innovation, and some incredible surprises. And trust me, it's far more fascinating than you've ever imagined. So fasten your seatbelt, because this is the untold history of New York City, from humble beginnings to a global icon. Long before the skyscrapers, before the yellow taxis, even before the first cobblestone streets, this land was known as Man. It was home to the Lenape people, who lived here for thousands of years. They were a thriving community, fishing in the rich waters, farming the fertile land, and trading all along the rivers that define this island. Their villages and pathways were the very first outlines of the city we know today. Then, in 1624, everything began to change. Dutch ships sailed into the natural harbor, and the settlers aboard saw incredible potential. They established a small trading post to the southern tip of Manhattan and called it New Amsterdam. Their primary goal? The booming fur trade. Life was tough for these early pioneers, but they were laying the foundations of what would become a world-changing city, brick by brick, deal by deal. And speaking of deals, you've probably heard of the most legendary one in history. In 1626, the Dutch Director General, Peter Minuit, reportedly purchased the entire island of Manhattan from the Lenape. The price, goods worth about 60 guilders, which some historians estimate is roughly $1,000 today. Now, many call it the bargain of the century, but it's a lot more complicated than that. For the Lenape, the concept of selling land permanently was completely foreign. They likely saw the transaction as an agreement to share the land, not to give it away forever. This single moment highlights a massive cultural misunderstanding that would shape the future of the continent. For the next few decades, New Amsterdam grew, but it was a roof-and-tumble place. It was a true melting pot from the very beginning, with people from all over Europe, enslaved Africans, and of course the native Lenape, all living in close quarters. It wasn't always peaceful, but this mix of cultures created a dynamic and resilient society. The Dutch established a fort, a church, and a grid of streets that you can still trace in Lower Manhattan today. But the Dutch chapter of New York's story was about to come to an abrupt end. In 1664, a fleet of English warships sailed into the harbor and demanded surrender. The governor, Peter Stuyvesant, wanted to fight, but the colonists, tired of his strict rule and seeing the overwhelming English force, refused. Without a single shot fired, New Amsterdam fell into British hands. The city was promptly renamed New York, in honor of the Duke of York, the brother of the English king. Under British rule, the city began to expand rapidly. The street grid pushed northward, commerce flourished, and New York became a vital link in the British colonial empire. Immigrants from England, Ireland, Germany, and beyond poured in, each adding their own flavor to the city's character. By the 1700s, New York was more than just a port. It was a burgeoning cultural and economic hub, connecting the old world with the new. Coffee houses, theaters, and taverns became the lively gathering places for merchants, sailors, politicians, and thinkers. It was in these places that the city's vibrant, argumentative, and ambitious personality was truly forged. As tensions with Great Britain began to rise across the colonies, New York found itself at the very heart of the conflict. It was a city divided. There were fierce loyalists who supported the crown, and passionate patriots who dreamed of independence. Protests, riots, and political debates filled the streets. The city was a hotbed of revolutionary activity, and when the war finally broke out, New York became a primary strategic target for both sides. The Battle of Brooklyn in 1776 was one of the largest battles of the entire Revolutionary War, and it was a devastating defeat for George Washington's Continental Army. The British captured New York City and would occupy it for the next 7 long years. It became the central base of operations for the British in North America. Life in the occupied city was incredibly difficult. Fires ravaged entire neighborhoods. Resources were scarce, and thousands of American prisoners were held in horrific conditions on prison ships in the harbor. But even under occupation, the spirit of revolution never died. New York was a center for espionage. Spies from both sides, like Nathan Hawley, for the Americans, operated in the shadows, gathering intelligence and risking everything for their cause. These were years of incredible hardship and sacrifice, but they were also years of unbelievable courage and resilience. Finally, in 1783, the war ended. The British evacuated, and General George Washington made his triumphant return to the city, riding down the Bowery. New York, scarred but standing, had transformed from a colonial trading post into a powerful symbol of American freedom. It even served as the first capital of the United States, where Washington himself was inaugurated as the first president. The city had learned to define itself, not just as a place of commerce, but as a cornerstone of a brand new nation. The 1800s were a period of explosive growth for New York. Picture this: waves of immigrants, hopeful and determined, sailing into the harbor from Ireland, Germany, Italy, and beyond. They arrived in search of a new beginning. For many, their first taste of America was the imposing sight of Ellis Island, a gateway to a city brimming with towering ambition and what seemed like endless possibilities. The city's population absolutely soared. As people arrived, they naturally settled near others who shared their language and customs. This is how vibrant neighborhoods like Little Italy and the Lower East Side were born, each with its own unique culture, food, and traditions. New York was rapidly becoming the great melting pot it's famous for today, a mosaic of diverse communities living side by side. But this rapid growth wasn't without its challenges. The city was crowded, and with overcrowding came serious problems. Disease could spread quickly through densely packed tenements, and crime was a constant worry. Life was tough, and survival required a special kind of grit. Yet, despite these hardships, the city didn't just survive, it thrived. The relentless ambition of its people, their sheer resilience in the face of adversity, fueled an unstoppable engine of progress. New York was a city built on hustle, and as the population grew, the city itself had to change. The infrastructure we now take for granted began to take shape. Imagine the awe of seeing the Brooklyn Bridge rise, connecting Manhattan and Brooklyn for the first time. Ferries crisscrossed the rivers and beneath the streets. A revolutionary new form of transport was being built, the first subway lines. These innovations were game changers, shrinking distances and transforming daily life. The 5 boroughs were starting to feel like one interconnected city. By the end of the 1800s, New York's identity was forged. It was the undeniable gateway to America, a place where dreams were chased, fortunes were made, and legends were born. It was a city in constant motion, a symbol of hope and opportunity for millions around the world. Now, let's fast forward into the 20th century, a period that would cement New York's status as a global icon. If the 19th century was about growth, the 20th was about reaching for the sky literally. The city's skyline, once dominated by church steeples, began to be defined by a new kind of cathedral: the skyscraper. Architectural marvels like the Chrysler Building, with its gleaming Art Deco spire, and the colossal Empire State Building pierced the clouds, becoming instant symbols of American ingenuity and economic power. Culturally, New York was hitting its stride. A collection of theaters in Midtown Manhattan blossomed into the one and only Broadway, the pinnacle of the performing arts world. Its glittering marquees and world-class productions became a beacon for actors, writers, and audiences from every corner of the globe. Meanwhile, downtown, a narrow street named Wall Street became the undisputed center of global finance. Its name alone became synonymous with wealth, power, and the relentless pulse of the market. Of course, the 20th century brought its own share of immense challenges: devastating fires, the crushing economic despair of the Great Depression, and periods of high crime tested the city's spirit. The Great Depression, in particular, hit New York hard. Breadlines formed, businesses shuttered, and the city's vibrant energy seemed to dim. But crisis has a way of forging character, and New York proved its resilience time and time again. Each challenge was met with a determination to rebuild and come back stronger. By the mid-century, New York had solidified its reputation. It was a global hub for art, fashion, commerce, and culture. It was the home of the abstract expressionists, the beat poets, and the pioneers of hip-hop. It was a city that not only welcomed diversity, but was energized by it. People from all over the world continued to flock here, drawn by the promise of reinvention and the freedom to be whoever they wanted to be. The 21st century began, and with it came a test unlike any other. The tragic events of September 11th, 2001 shook the city, the nation, and the world to its core. The loss was immeasurable, and the skyline was forever changed. In the aftermath, a cloud of grief and uncertainty hung over the city. But in its darkest hour, New York's true character shone through. The resilience was immediate and powerful. New Yorkers came together. Strangers helped strangers, and a profound sense of unity emerged from the rubble. The city didn't just mourn. It began to rebuild. New skyscrapers, like the magnificent One World Trade Center, rose to reclaim the skyline, standing as a powerful symbol of defiance and remembrance. Neighborhoods in Lower Manhattan were revitalized, and the city's spirit, though wounded, never faltered. Today, New York City is more than just a metropolis of concrete and steel. It's a living testament to human ambition, creativity, and incredible courage. It's a city of 1,000 stories. You can feel it when you walk through the financial powerhouse of Wall Street, relax in the urban oasis of Central Park, catch a show on Broadway, or walk across the iconic Brooklyn Bridge. Every corner, every street, every landmark tells a story of struggle, of triumph, and of an energy that is simply relentless. From its origins as a humble Dutch trading post to the global capital that never sleeps, New York City has been in a state of constant evolution. Its history is a powerful narrative of resilience, a celebration of diversity, and a showcase of human ambition. It's a story written by the millions of people who have called it home. So the next time you find yourself walking its streets, whether you're a lifelong resident or a first-time visitor, take a moment, look up at that incredible skyline. Feel the unmistakable rhythm of the city pulsating around you. Remember that you're a part of something much bigger. Every building, every street, and every person is a chapter in a story that started centuries ago and is still being written today. New York City isn't just a place on a map, it's a living history, a modern icon, and a dream that never, ever stops growing. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through New York's incredible history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel for more stories like this. We'd love to have you back. Until next time.